What happens when a black teen helps an elderly woman and ends up in a jail cell instead of getting a thank you? They thought he'd stay quiet. What happened next made the entire nation stop and listen. There was nothing flashy about Marcus Price. 16 years old, tall but always shrinking himself to fit in, hoodie halfway zipped, headphones one bud in, just enough to catch the vibe, not enough to lose awareness. That morning was regular. School backpack slung over one shoulder, peanut butter sandwich in foil tucked into the side pocket. The world didn't expect much from a kid like Marcus, and most days he didn't expect much back. Until he saw her. Mrs. Eleanor Green. 83 years old if she was a day. White as chalk, arms like broomsticks, and stubborn enough to cross a cracked sidewalk with 2 paper bags and no help in sight. She stepped wrong. One bag ripped at the bottom. Cans hit the pavement like a drum line. Clank, bounce, roll. People looked, then looked away. Marcus didn't. He jogged over, scooping up green beans, corn, whatever that other mess was, kneeling without a word like he'd done it 100 times. She blinked at him, surprised. "I'm fine," she muttered. "I know," he said, not arguing. "But I'm not." She cracked half a smile. He handed her the can of peaches, then pulled a spare grocery bag from his backpack. "You carry extra bags?" she asked. "I got sisters," Marcus shrugged. "A man learns to be ready." By the time they reached her porch 3 blocks down, she was telling him about her late husband's Ford truck, how sweet tea used to taste better, and why nobody made a decent lemon bar anymore. Marcus laughed, polite, soaking it in. He didn't know this woman, but there was something nice in the way her voice cracked on memories. "Let me give you something," she said at the door, fishing for her purse. "No, ma'am," Marcus replied, stepping back. "Helping ain't for sale." And that was that. He turned, heading toward the bus stop, his backpack lighter than before, his chest a little heavier, but in a good way. That kind of heavy that made a boy feel like a man. He had 1 foot off her porch when the siren started. 2 patrol cars slid into the curb like they were chasing ghosts. Tires squealed, doors slammed, and suddenly Marcus had red and blue flashing in his eyes like it was Christmas, and he was the only gift. "Hands where I can see 'em," barked a voice. Marcus froze. "What's the problem?" he asked, voice calm but soft. "You match a description," the other cop said. White guy. Buzz cut. The kind of face that looked like it only relaxed in church. Black male. Gray hoodie. Backpack. Seen fleeing a robbery. "A robbery?" Marcus blinked. "I was just—" "Turn around. Hands on your head." The old lady called from the porch. "Officers, that's a mistake. He helped me. That boy didn't rob anyone." But they didn't look at her. Marcus's arms trembled as he lifted them. They frisked him like they were trying to find secrets in his skin. One pulled the backpack from his shoulder, dumping the contents onto the sidewalk. Sandwich, textbooks, a notepad with math scribbles, and a photo of his baby sister in a glittery frame. "Well, damn," the cop muttered, then corrected himself. "Nothing here." Still, they cuffed him. Not because of evidence, because of fear, of protocol, of habit. "Call my mom," Marcus tried. "Call the lady. She saw—" "Quiet," the cop snapped. The crowd was gathering. Phones came out. Mrs. Green shouted again. Her voice cracked this time, louder than before. "I said that's the wrong boy." But that wasn't the story the officers wanted to hear. One looked annoyed, the other distracted, like the kid in cuffs was just a formality, just another shift, just another write-up. The ride to the station was short. Marcus sat in the back seat with his wrists locked and his dignity bleeding out beside him. No questions, no rights read, just silence. Cold, hard silence. And here's the part they never talk about. It was quiet, not because there was nothing to say, but because the boy knew if he said the wrong thing, even politely, things could shift from bad to worse real fast. So he swallowed it. Every question, every protest, every breath that might come out the wrong way. The precinct smelled like wet paper and stale coffee. They didn't ask his name again, just took his picture, scanned his fingerprints, and walked him down the corridor to a cell that smelled like metal and sweat. No windows, one bench, no shoes. They said they'd figure it out, that he'd just wait here. Marcus didn't cry, not out of pride, just tired, just disappointed, because he wasn't surprised. And that's the part that should haunt you most. What happened next changed everything. And trust me, you don't want to miss how it all unfolds. You ever sit in a room so quiet it screams? Marcus did. That cell wasn't just four concrete walls and a metal bench. It was a message, a warning, cold on the skin, loud in the bones. And the message was clear. Stay small, stay quiet, and maybe we'll remember to let you out. It had been 3 hours since they locked him up. 3 hours since he was a boy walking home from helping an old woman, and turned into a case number in a folder nobody wanted to open. His wrists still ached from the cuffs. His sandwich had been stomped into the sidewalk, and the only thing they'd offered him at the station was a paper cup of water that tasted like rust and pity. No phone call, no questions, no rights read, just a vague, "We're working on it." Marcus sat back, arms crossed, head against the wall, trying to think straight. He wasn't scared. Not exactly. He was angry. Not the loud, swing-on-somebody kind of angry. No, this was a quiet storm. The kind that brews deep, steady. The kind passed down from his grandfather's marches to his mama's second job to his own silence right now. Outside that cell, things were moving fast, just not in his favor. Across town, his mother, Cheryl Price, had just finished a double shift at the nursing home. She'd barely put down her keys when her phone buzzed. A neighbor sending a blurry video, and one sentence that stopped her breath cold. "Is this Marcus?" She hit play, and there it was. Her son, face down on the sidewalk, a cop's knee in his back, books scattered, old Mrs. Green screaming in the background. The video wasn't grainy enough to hide the truth. It was crystal clear, and so was her rage. She didn't waste time, didn't cry, didn't panic. She moved. By the time Marcus was sitting in that cell, Cheryl was already at the precinct front desk, palm flat on the counter, voice low but firm. "I'm here for my son." The officer behind the glass barely looked up. "Name?" "Marcus Price, 16. He was brought in about an hour ago, for walking while black." Silence. The officer blinked. "Ma'am, you'll need to wait outside." "I'm not leaving this building without my son. Call whoever you need to call." She wasn't loud. She didn't need to be. There was fire behind her eyes, the kind of fire that makes grown men sweat under bulletproof vests. Meanwhile, across the internet, that video was doing what fire does best, spreading. By the end of the 4th hour, it had hit 200,000 views on TikTok. Comment sections were a war zone. Another day, another wrongful arrest. "He helped that woman. I saw it with my own eyes. Name and badge number. Let's go." One user, at Legal Eagle Justice, tagged the ACLU. Another linked the police department's official page. The snowball was rolling and the slope was steep. Back inside the precinct, Marcus still hadn't been told why he was there. They hadn't shown him any evidence, just a vague report about a suspect in the area. No apology, no explanation, just cold air and fluorescent lights. When they finally opened the cell door, Marcus stood up slow. He expected a lawyer, or maybe his mother. Instead, it was Officer Brennan, not the one who cuffed him, but another one. Older, mustache, stiff shoulders, too many years behind a desk. "You, Marcus Price?" He nodded. "Come with me." Marcus followed, down the hallway, past desks and filing cabinets, until they reached a room with a chipped table and one chair. "Sit." Brennan looked at him like he wasn't sure if Marcus was a threat or a nuisance. He had a folder in hand, barely opened. "We've received some attention." Online, Marcus didn't reply. "Seems like your name's trending. People are upset. They think this was mishandled." He said it like someone describing a spilled cup of coffee. Mishandled. "I didn't do anything wrong," Marcus said finally. His voice cracked, but his spine stayed straight. Brennan scratched his chin. "We're checking surveillance footage. Nothing concrete yet." "You mean you arrested me with no evidence?" "It's procedure." Marcus leaned forward. "Then your procedure's broken." Brennan didn't answer, just stood, walked to the door, and knocked twice. Another officer came in, whispered something. Brennan nodded, sighed. "You'll be released. For now. For now." That's how they said, "You're lucky," without admitting they were wrong. Outside, Cheryl was waiting. She wrapped Marcus in a hug that said everything words couldn't. Her hand trembled on the back of his neck. He didn't cry, still too stunned. But the weight of it all, it settled in his chest like a brick. The cameras were already there. Local reporters. Activists. Mrs. Green with her arms folded and her own voice loud now. "I told them." "They ignored me. But they won't ignore this." Because this wasn't just about Marcus anymore. It was about the millions like him. And now, finally, the country was watching. This is it. The moment everything flips. You've made it this far. Now stay and witness how the truth finally hits the light. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He lay in his bed, not a jail cot anymore, but home, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling like it owed him answers. He had made it out, sure, but something in him had shifted, like a gear had clicked into place. This wasn't just about what happened to him. It was about what they thought would happen next. Nothing. They thought he'd be quiet, shrink back into the shadows, maybe throw a hoodie over his hurt and walk on like the world didn't just try to chew him up and swallow him whole. But they were wrong. By 7 a.m., his mother's front yard looked like a press conference. Cameras, boom mics, a half-dozen local stations already rolling, national news vans pulling up behind them. Some were there for a soundbite. Others smelled a headline. But nobody, not a single soul, was ready for what Marcus said when the microphones turned on. He stepped out onto the porch in that same hoodie. He didn't comb his hair perfect, didn't dress up. He came as he was, and he spoke. "I'm not here for pity. I'm here because I'm tired. Tired of being looked at like a threat. Tired of being handled like a problem before I even get to speak. I'm 16. I helped a woman carry groceries. I didn't commit a crime. I committed kindness. And that got me a cell." His voice was steady. Not loud, not angry, but sharp, like it had a blade behind every word. My mama shouldn't have to fight like a lawyer just to see me. My face shouldn't be on a viral video for doing the right thing. My name shouldn't be trending because officers decided not to listen to the one witness who actually saw what happened. Behind him, Cheryl wiped a tear, but didn't let it fall. Reporters started firing questions. What happened inside? What did the officers say? Was he planning legal action? Marcus didn't flinch. They didn't say much, but their silence said enough. One anchor whispered into her mic, "This young man is sharper than half the people running this city." And that was the spark. By noon, the mayor had released a vague statement about concern and pending review. By 2, a national civil rights organization had offered to represent Marcus and his family. By evening, over 2 million people had watched the video. Hashtags were trending. Art students painted murals of him on boarded-up storefronts. Teachers printed his name on classroom signs next to words like courage, justice, and hope. But inside the police department, the one that hadn't apologized, hadn't even returned a call, a storm was brewing. Internal Affairs had launched an investigation, not because they wanted to, because they had to. The pressure was too loud, too visible. One of the officers who arrested Marcus, Officer Kipling, had been through this before. A complaint in 19, a suspension in 21. Always swept under insufficient evidence, but now, with body cams, phone footage, and a city that wasn't willing to look away anymore, it was different. Even Officer Brennan, the one who'd finally let Marcus go, was starting to feel it. He sat in his car that night, watching the news, watching that porch speech, and something tugged at him. Not guilt exactly, but recognition. The realization that the system he'd spent 20 years defending had stopped pretending to work the way it claimed. Across town, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with a notepad in front of him. He wasn't drawing. He was writing. A statement for the school board. A plan for a community forum. A list of names, other kids who'd been stopped, cuffed, questioned for no reason. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He was just tired of waiting for one. And the thing is, when a young black boy stops waiting and starts moving, whole cities pay attention. The school tried to hush it up, asked him not to speak in class, suggested he focus on his studies. He smiled. And then he showed up to homeroom with a T-shirt that said, "I am not your suspect." The principal asked him to take it off. He said, "Then you'll have to explain why you're uncomfortable." Word spread. Students followed. Teachers nodded in hallways. Parents sent letters. The system that had quietly cuffed him was now publicly unraveling, thread by thread. And that's when the real shift happened. Not in courtrooms, not on the news, but in the living rooms of everyday folks. Fathers sat their sons down and said, "Watch this." Grandmothers whispered prayers and mailed checks to civil rights groups. Barbershops buzzed with conversation. Churches lit candles. And neighbors, the kind who never waved before, started asking if Marcus's family needed anything. By the end of the week, a petition with over 300,000 signatures demanded the officer's termination and a citywide review of stop-and-search practices. Marcus didn't ask for any of it, but he carried it. He had been locked away like a threat, but came out a voice. And the nation? The nation finally had to listen.